Welcome to the Courtship Aftershow, a talk show on the Reader Seeks Romance channel that recaps and discusses former NBC, current USA Network, dating reality show, The Courtship, inspired by the work of Jane Austen. I am Liz Donatelli, and my co-host is my good friend and reality TV superfan, Tiffany Current. Today, Tiffany and I are joined by Regency romance author, Christy Caldwell.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk Regency and the Courtship show and everything with you ladies. So thank you for having me.
Well, before we dig into our discussion of episode 8 entitled Battle of the Brits, let's first chat with Christy about her novella Loved and Found, which appears in Big Duke Energy Seasons of Sin anthology. And I'd also love to hear about your new upcoming Regency romance, Desperately Seeking a Duchess. So do tell.
And Loved and Found, it's a second chance romance. Second chance is one of my
that's
favorite.
nice.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tropes. She's a duke's daughter, and he was trying to make himself better for her. But, you know, some of that was obviously his own demons. And then he goes to war to make himself, to build himself into something. And then he comes back with, you know, even more complexities and, you know, struggles. And so them coming back together and as two mature people who have now had been in love, that have now experienced life. So I always like to give these heroes and heroines who really have had struggles in life that well-deserved happily ever after. And Desperately Seeking a Duchess, you know, again, he's a duke. She's from a mining town. She's got zero interest in marriage, but they form a friendship. So the basis of their relationship is not like passion, although he's completely head over heels attracted to her. They first meet in the mining village where he's trying to get her. He's pretending to be his brother because he's an identical twin. And so,
I love those storylines. Those are always, I know Liz likes that because she's like, that could go in many directions.
yeah.
You know, that's true.
He's pretending to be his brother, trying to get her to come back to London. He's like, how hard could this be? And who would want to live in a mining village? And she wants to, you know. So he kind of realizes that she has this love of fossils, for example, and she's got a limited amount of books. And, you know, he's talking to her about the museums. And so he paints this world that she wants to see. She's able to see that even though that they're these identical brothers, that they're not the same person. And for him, that's a huge, you know, because everybody sees a duke and everybody just, you know, doesn't look beneath the surface.
Well, it sounds like a juicy read.
It does.
So let's dig into episode 8. I was excited for the return of the Remys, Mr. and Mrs.
Yes.
Nicole's parents. I can't tell you how safe I feel when they're on screen.
They're so good, right? Like they totally,
They're lovely.
The dad is so awesome. Like he's low key, like he just feels like I don't know, like I just love when the dad is present. And
he's like a warm blanket. He's just he's comforting. He's very comforting.
Warm blanket Remy.
And I love it when she said, "Oh, Captain Kim went home," and he was like, "Oh, Captain Kim." I'm like, "Wow, really? You had a thing for Captain Kim?" He was so. I was like,
"They seem
you're the one."
They're very empathetic. They seem like they feel deeply.
Are the parents present in that way with those other shows? Because I almost feel like there's
no.
They're like she's protected.
No. That's why it's more wild, I think, on those shows, because the parents, they show up like when it's narrowed down to like the final four or something or other. Here, it's like they're always around, so you kind of have to be on good behavior, kind of have to be polite.
Nice.
And I like that. I personally like that.
I do too. And I would think that is, I mean, as they mentioned at the start of the show, having the parents involved during the courtship process is a Regency thing. So so it makes sense. It's and I just love them. They need to have their own spin-off show, the Remy.
I love them.
I'm thinking that maybe Miss Cleary might be the friend Tessa Cleary maybe she'll get a spin-off.
I think so, maybe.
I think it should be called like Drinking with Miss Cleary, because every time you see her, she's drinking and she sounds a little buzzed, you know?
I feel like, you know what? I was going back to that, but if you're on this show, this dating show, because usually with most dating shows, you don't have your friend there on like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette.
Right.
But imagine being on this show with all these gorgeous guys and you can't really try to get with them. And so all you can do is drink. It's like, I'm going to just drink. I clearly can't flirt with, Mr. Judge. So let me just have a drink.
The worst friend in the world right.
Yeah. So I think that's why she's drunk. Because she's like, I just have to drink and not, flirt with these guys because they're so attractive. And she has to do something with her time.
Yes. I think that's a great story for a romance where it's like a great hands-off type of thing where I can't touch them because I'm on this reality show with my friend and she's the bachelorette and I
yes.
That's
why she's drinking.
Like first contemporary.
All you need to do is give us a note in the acknowledgements. Thanks, Tiffany and Liz.
Yes.
And we'll be good.
Absolutely.
So this episode begins with their big, you're already laughing. There's a dinner. There's this big fancy dinner. And then there's parlor games. So the whole thing is whoever behaves, I guess, the most gentlemanly during the dinner will be chosen to participate in parlor games. And I have questions about parlor games for you, Christy. Name it specifically about Poor Kitty. About that game.
Real. Yes.
So during the dinner, the most notable thing to me, although there's a bit of intensity between Mumbray and Nazir, Cones stole the show.
It was
Mr. Cones.
He
Mr.
was
Cones.
on, and he's so self-aware that he was even talking afterwards, like, yeah, it was really awkward. He decided to kind of cut Mr. Remy off while doing the toast.
That was hilarious.
That
was hilarious. What I loved about him cutting him off is that Mr. Remy kept talking. It's like, well, I guess I'll have when he's done toasting, then this other person can toast. And then Mr. Remy just started cracking up, and I was cracking up like Mr. Cones.
Yeah,
and the cherry on top, like my husband and I were dying laughing like that. We had to pause it because we were hysterical, and that it was such a bad speech, right? Like not only did he interrupt, like we were trying to figure out, like it was almost like they spliced together fragments of sentences and took it. They're like, is that real or was it that halting? And
it seemed like something you'd see in a movie, like you'd see that embarrassing moment, because as he was talking, I'm like, where is he? Is he okay? Like, where is this guy?
And Nazir was given, a chance to
I don't know why he needed to toast, but he toasted in French.
He did it in French again. He did it.
He knows that nobody else speaks French. Yeah, I mean, like no one else speaks French, which I appreciate.
Didn't Mr. Remy say, "Oh yeah, I do speak French"? Or was he just?
He said a little. He said he spoke a little bit of French.
Oh,
so did Dom.
Because I thought
just a little bit. But you don't. If you know everyone is speaking English, like don't or say part of it in English and then like maybe I don't know a sentence. Translate it.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. And he referred to he and Nazir and Miss Remy were speaking about how at the last episode he spoke French to her while they were dancing, and I thought he had told her by now what he had said, but he never told her what he had said. And he's like, oh, you have to keep dating me to find out. It's like, oh,
right?
That's a weird cliffhanger.
He's really dragging on. It's just like a few sentences. It's just like, let it go. Yes. Mr. Judge, he's attractive, but I've never been attracted to him until this episode.
I like it.
But then when they brought out, I think it was tongue. Was it tongue?
Oh my God.
They had to try.
Cow
tongue. And he's just like, all right, Nicole, you and I, let's do it. And then when she took that bite and her expression changed, I was cracking up. But I appreciated that he was kind of like joking with her across the table. It's very cute.
And that's why I continue to enjoy him and like him. He's in my top 2. Okay. Mr. Judge is up there because he finds very authentic, organic ways of making connections with her. It's like, oh, hey, and it's always from the perspective of fun, so what I wanted to ask you, Christy, and I just remembered when Cones did the whole, stole the toast from Mr. Remy, in that moment, would you say that he would be a great male protagonist, a great male hero, or he would just be better as a secondary character? Because I would think that most people say, oh, he's just secondary. He's just the goofy friend of the Duke.
For that moment, I think that's like a romance moment, right? Like totally. Yeah. Like, I don't think that kicks him back to like, he doesn't get a book. I'm like, oh yeah, that elevates this poor guy. He needs a book because of that, that mortifying moment of Oh, because like we've all been there. It came from a place of good with her.
Yes,
right?
It did. It did.
Absolutely.
To be like that, like he was just trying to earn favor with her and her family.
Yes.
He's a real person. He's a real person. That's something a real person would do. And it's like,
oh, did you see his tweet? It was hysterical.
Oh, there's a tweet.
I said Twitter is oftentimes a cesspool, but like there's some good stuff. And he said, why couldn't you just sit your 6'4" ass down and eat the damn asparagus?
Mr. Bochicchio carving the roast. I thought that was attractive.
Sweet.
I thought that was a very attractive thing for him to do.
He was modest about it too. He like, oh yeah, I cut this roast. He was like,
yes.
Like, yes.
I like that. What I liked in that moment too is that he even said they cut to him saying like, you could speak French, but if nobody understands it, who cares? He's like, but in his case, he cut the turkey, and that's showing I'm here for family. I'm here to do stuff for you. And
and
I like Mr. Bochicchio.
Did they say he's a pescatarian?
Yes.
No, was it? No, not pescatarian.
He eats he likes fish, right? So,
is that what they said? I thought they said episcotarian. I thought they were talking about his religion.
So that's why they should be even more impressed.
Episcopal, right?
Oh yeah, that's what. But yeah, no.
Or did they say it wasn't that one? I don't think, did they say pescatarian? I've got to look that up. I swear they were talking about his religion.
No, and I'm pretty sure that's why everyone's still impressed because he doesn't eat meat. So
he only. That's right. You were correct, Christy. Tiffany was on a whole other. She was on a whole other plane. At the end of the dinner, they announced who's going to be invited for parlor games. It's Chapman, Bochicchio, Mumbray, and of course Nazir. Yes. I don't understand why Mr. Holland was not invited, why Mr. Hunter wasn't invited. I mean, they've been kind of pushed to the back.
They're in the back right now. It's very surprising.
Now it was my favorite. Like he's a teacher. He's a dad. He's sweet. He's somebody who's looking for commitment.
Yes.
Right? So for me, my list looks very different, right? So like I want somebody who's not going to be like, oh no, commitment. Let me to like the idea tug.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. We'll get to that in a minute.
Right. So, but for Mr. Holland, I'm like, oh, why? Like, why is he in the bottom? Like all the guys who are my hero material, gonzo.
Yeah. Actually, Mr. Holland, I would say is my third. So I would say Judge Bochicchio and Holland, but we'll talk about that later about how now I have to pick a new third. But yeah, I'm wondering, does maybe Mr. Holland come off a little too hungry for commitment? That maybe it's
what's funny? I think you've used this word with him before.
Hungry. I have used
because when he kissed her, you said that was a hungry kiss. He's hungry. He's hungry for love. That's his book title. He's hungry for love. But in general, though, I think that's it, because later on she's talking to her mother about Mr. Holland, and she said that he's almost too into her. Like she's like he's moving too fast for her, and that kind of put her off, that it's just almost too quick for her with him.
Which is interesting, because the one thing that Miss Remy tells each and every suitor is, I want you to pursue me. I want you to make me feel special. I'm the only person. But yet, Mr. Holland has done that.
More than.
So I feel like her messaging is mixed messaging is going out.
It's mixed. She has some mixed messages, but let's get back to the parlor. So they go to the parlor to start these parlor games. And the very first game they play is Poor Kitty, where I guess you crawl around and pretend you're a cat without people laughing. I'm sure Liz wants to ask this question, but is this a real game?
So
in Regency times.
Great question. So I haven't come across this specific one, but very similar ones of on the floor. Even like parts of like eating something off of the person's back kind of thing, where and it's
in Regency era, they're allowed to do that.
So, oh yes. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about Regency, right? And so, there's a number, and I can send you some of the articles and research that I've done, and that I came across, because there's sometimes that I'm like, if we did these now, this would be scandalous now. And so those games, like the idea of crawling around the floor and, but there's some that are even more scandalous than that, like that involve like navigating with people in the room and touching but not touching. And some of it they said is kind of that these are those opportunities in the Regency era to have kind of close to intimate exchanges, because to me they pretty much are, but those are very real. And it was so neat that I saw one of those kind of parlor games unfolding on this show, and my husband was like dying. Like
it was amusing. I think I'm going to play this at my next party. I think if everyone's drunk enough, so Mr. Nazir played the role of the kitty. So which I like, because he's so, full of himself. I like to see him brought down to being a kitty cat.
That was hilarious. And he meowed, man. I mean, good for him. He went for it. He did. He did go for it. And then after that, they played Never Have I Ever, which still confuses me how to play because of that whole double that it always confuses. Yeah, should you drink? Should you not drink?
Is that a Regency one? I
was going to ask you.
No, it wasn't, because she said let's do something more present day. And so then it was Miss Remy who's like, let's play something different.
That in my research. Okay. So
no. And I think she kicked it off where I think she eventually asked, like, have you ever had a threesome? I'm like, come on, Miss Remy. Her mind immediately goes to like, let's get dark and dirty.
But did you see, not only did Nazir drink, but so did Mr. Mumbray, which begs the question, no,
he didn't. Are you serious?
Yes. Tessa, when they're saying, when Nazir was drinking, then they flash to Tessa and she's pointing to Mumbray like, can you believe he's drinking? So I want to know, were they in the same threesome?
Oh my God. That's the question, Mr. Mumbray.
Talks a lot about how they have been in the same circles and that. So yeah.
In the same threesome circle, apparently. That's what he was insinuating.
That's what I was wondering. But now what Christy alluded to earlier was that Mr. Chapman takes a drink when she asks, what was it? Nazir asked a question about commitment. Do you have...
Right.
However he phrased it was basically like, do you have issues with commitments
Yep. Never have I ever feared commitment. And Chapman's like, gulp, 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 gulp.
Down it, shoved it. Like for me, I would have been like, okay, I would have crossed him off the list. No matter how attracted I was to him, like that was the big red flag for me. I mean, probably way before that there were flags, but that was, I don't know.
Yeah, a big flag hanging out of his van. Yeah.
Right.
But it's tough because even though it is a red flag, I'm a big Mr. Chapman fan, but you probably shouldn't marry this guy. He asks such good questions and he says all the right things. And so it's very, it's like he's giving mixed signals. On one hand, he's saying, I'm afraid of commitment. On the other hand, he's saying like, I'm really into you. So it's very tough to, I don't know.
And
to figure out what he means.
Physical attraction to him. And that is something that can't be dismissed, right? I'm like, Mr. Holland, but if she's not physically attracted, like if she's not, like I'm attracted to him, but like if she's not, then you can't, make like, it's a friendship. Like, there was one.
It's a friendship.
And she's like, you are, and I get that. So, I think trying to balance, who's, that it's romantic and a relationship, a friendship. So it's got to be a merger of both. So
one nice thing that happened off of this, since they were invited to the parlor games, so that the guys got to go to like a shooting expedition with Miss Remy and Tessa and Mrs. Remy. And we learned that Mrs. Remy apparently is a sharp shooter. Who knew? Who knew?
Right?
Yes, and Cones calls her sniper mom, which I thought was pretty
I love that.
She was a spy. Let's be honest. Mrs. Remy was probably a spy back in the day. She was military. She's a doctor now. She was really good at
any doctor, right? Like
exactly. She shot all those little clay pigeons down. I'm like, she's Secret Service. Like, what's happening here?
Amazing. Oh, yeah. Mom is great.
She's fantastic. But can I just say, when they showed like the slow-mo of those guys walking in those outfits, I thought it was so attractive. I'm sorry. It was my favorite costume. My favorite costume. I love the costume.
I have to agree.
All them Elmer Fudd. Was that?
Yes.
Yes, Elmer Fudd. And I was like, this is the most attractive that I've found all of them in those outfits. I don't know what she's thinking. They were very attractive to me.
I know. I was
those caps.
I love those hats on any guy, any time in history. Something about it. Okay.
I'm more fun then.
It was hot.
then apparently Mr. Hunter decided to try to make his move, but it kind of failed because he's like, he stole time with Nicole after the shooting and then had nothing to offer her in the way of opening his heart.
That was very weird. That was weird because she was asking him direct questions about his past girlfriend. Because we learned during the shooting expedition that he lived with someone, and that's like, oh, well, what happened?
That's right.
And then when they started to talk about it, he completely shut down and wouldn't reveal anything about his past. So I thought that was of note. That was a note.
Yeah. For me, I'm like, okay, I thought that's where we were going to get the story of his past. She's going to get that story. And I'm like, wait, no, this is going nowhere. Like, we're not going to find anything out. He's not going to share.
Yeah. Like, he didn't even say no comment. He just stared at her. He's like, and she's doing all the talking and he just gets dead in the eyes and just like looks at her. I was like, he must be either traumatized or he doesn't know what to say. And I don't know if this is any tip off to Mr. Hunter's personality, but did you notice the animal on his brooch? They did a close up.
What was it?
I didn't.
Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure because I'm not great on animals. But wait, it looked like a leopard. It was a spotted cat, like a leopard or a cheetah. I don't know how to tell the difference.
But what does that tell you about his personality? Like,
well, I'm wondering. I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering if I was wondering if maybe that tells
they're just still until they attack their prey. Like, I don't know what that
like caught like a cheetah. I don't know.
She sees me.
Well,
my spots aren't hiding me. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know, but it was odd to me because he seems very open about his family, right? Like he clearly loves his family, his past with his family, but when it comes to relationships, he does not want to open up about that, and that really tells you something. He's so open about one part of his life, but the other part is just a complete black hole, I guess. So it's
if you're unable, like what I always found is if there is a person who is unable to speak about a person in their past in a relationship, that you are either you've not moved on enough to commit to somebody, or you, like I think you said, that you're just emotionally traumatized, and that's something else that has to be kind of worked through in order to be in a healthy relationship.
Exactly.
And so not there.
I agree. I did wonder if perhaps he lied.
He's not gonna, because she randomly asked him that, and he jokingly said, "Oh, with my sister," and then he did take a pause and say, "Yes, Liz, I don't know what's going on with you today, but no, they're not making up stories."
Because of his pause and then him quickly saying yes and then being mysterious, I did wonder if he was just doing that because he really hasn't lived with anyone. He hasn't been loved, and he didn't want to.
I think that the pause was him saying, "Should I admit this part of myself that this happened?" That's what the pause was, because then later on, he's basically saying, I was, but once again, I still can't talk about it. Like whatever happened with this woman.
Yeah, that's how I'd interpreted it as well. Like that pause was like, can I talk about this? Should I talk about this? And that he's not ready to talk about it.
Okay. I just realized why he picked the cheetah. Hunter is his last name, Hunter. So it's like a cheetah hunts. I don't know. Listen, I'm so confused about him because I feel like we don't have a lot to go on. So of course I'm like, he's just lying. He's just saying things.
Lying. I think he's uncomfortable talking about his feelings.
I actually wrote that down. I said he looks really uncomfortable talking about.
He was uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, then I've misinterpreted. But for as uncommunicative as Mr. Hunter was, Mr. Cones was very forthcoming in a surprise champagne blanket
another picnic. It was another picnic.
There were more blankets again.
It's another blanket. It's another blanket. Yeah, it's another blanket. And an umbrella. They had a very nice sunny umbrella with the blanket this time too.
Maybe they've run out of blankets. So they're like, we want to put more blankets, but we don't have anything but one blanket. So let's just add an umbrella.
Let's have the umbrella.
And they're like, come on, we have to, create an umbrella budget now. I don't know.
Stop it. But on this date, he admitted that he was sexually fluid, which was good for him for being brave and admitting that to her. That was,
I loved that she was I love that she loved him for that. And that, that she was, appreciated that because his love and acceptance of everyone, and that it was a huge attraction for her. And I thought that was beautiful.
Oh yeah. She definitely in that moment could see herself with him, because knowing what was in his heart and knowing he felt safe enough to trust her, she could also see him being, in it for the long haul, a family man. Yep. So yeah, that really, and he went in for the kiss. I think this was his first kiss.
That was the first kiss. Liz, do you want to talk about the kiss?
Do I? I mean, yeah, I feel like it was a very succulent kiss.
Great word choice.
I think it was very succulent. It was an intense kiss. I was pretty sure that he was gonna just swallow her whole face.
Oh my God, stop it.
Which makes me think, okay, he was very into it. And that's what
I think he was just very eager. Like, maybe he was very eager. He's sucking in her essence. He's like one of those cats. Yes. I'm just gonna take it all from you. I'm gonna take it all.
Yeah,
and he took it. And
like, from Harry Potter, the Dementors that they would like, when they would just,
That's the life out of her.
He was dementing her or whatever.
She was demented afterwards. She was like,
didn't you say afterwards she looked a little discombobulated? I don't recall that.
They did cut to her after the kiss, and she's.
I believe Tiffany's trying to say that her makeup looked like it was like dripping off, like he had sucked her makeup off. Is that what? It was intense. And you know what? I don't blame him, because he hadn't had a chance to kiss her up to this point. So he like took 5 kisses and jammed him into this one kiss.
He said, I'm going to get everything out of this kiss. And he took it. And she's like, I guess I'm giving myself to you in this moment. It felt like a long time. Like I was watching and I was like, I think I leaned into the screen. Like, what's going to happen with this?
I did. Right. It's almost like
I feel like Anthony Bridgerton, if he wasn't smelling his heroine, like the way that he inhaled her essence and smell, that's how he would have kissed her. Like he was consuming her. Like that's what it was.
That's the right word.
Consuming is an excellent word to describe that. I mean, honestly, like for a few seconds, I was like, I'd like to be on the other end of that.
You wanted that kiss? You wanted him kissing you?
I kind of did. Let's there was emotion in it. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of lip.
Out of all the kisses, and we've had a couple, who would you want to kiss you out of the people that have kissed her? There's been Mr. Holland. Mr. Judge has, oh my God, he has kissed her.
Yes, and we didn't really cover it too much in the last
never covered that
episode. But yeah, no, I've seen, oh wait, but he kissed her at the ball. He kissed her at the ball. I don't. I mean, I'm a Mr. Chapman fan, so I would say Mr. Chapman. But Mr. Holland, did he kiss her?
I don't know if you.
Oh, that's right. He did the Holland
private date. I don't know if you saw the Holland date, Christy. That was like a couple episodes ago. He, as Liz said, he kisses with hunger, like this is our last moment in life together. Like his kiss was so like this is the end.
Yeah,
we're getting ready to die tomorrow, and it was a very nice, intense. But this kiss,
I'm a Holland fan. Like I said, I hated that, where he ended up, but because I think he's very attractive and he was someone who wasn't afraid to show her, like, he's a good guy. Like that's for me. And I'm a sucker for a good guy. And he's my,
Tiffany likes the wandering sort.
Look, I don't like I just find him very attractive. He reminds me of Cillian.
Very
that's
sexy.
Why it's purely Cillian Murphy vibes that I love about him. That's what I like.
He is a rake. Look. He's definitely a textbook rake.
He's a rake. I know he's a rake.
And that's a very right. That's where a lot of us are attracted to. Right. I write a lot of rakes. I love like I'm saying, I love the friend and the beta, but I love me a sexy rake.
Yeah.
And that's why I said like Chapman. And so it's only because I'm able to like dissect with my romance author brain that I'm like, oh wait, no, it's this guy who's the real hero. Kind of I say that. But Chapman for me is like, like I think there's some fiery chemistry. Like he's sexy,
definitely.
Right?
Yeah, he's sexy.
Definitely. And I was thinking as a rake, I was like, if I were to write Chapman in a romance novel, I said, well, he'd have to be a reformed rake because there has to be. Yeah. But you know what? I would not want to reform Mr. Chapman because I feel like there's something very special about his way of life and everything, and how he travels and kind of lives day to day. So I actually wouldn't want him to change his life. I don't want him to. That's why I kind of don't want him to end up with Miss Remy, because I want him to continue living his life as he's doing.
Yeah, I agree. He seems like he knows what he wants out of life, and that's a good life for him. And maybe he should just keep living.
Yeah, just keep it like that.
Because I was looking at, and they said, he's not afraid to admit like he's into a McConaughey rom-com, and I'm like, any guy who's into a rom-com isn't a bad guy, right? And so like I kind of, like, again, Twitter serves its purpose and doesn't, but like I dislike immensely that people drag him for his, what he, his lifestyle and and traveling and, and like I said, I think that's I love that about him. I think that's something that is, and like you said, does that mean he's able to set down roots in the way that, she wants? And I don't necessarily know, but that doesn't mean that his, somebody that fits with that lifestyle is out there.
I think you need somebody that fits with that lifestyle, but I think it's a great lifestyle. I wish I could just travel the world and, from place to place. What was interesting is I think he said, I forgot who he said it to, maybe to Dom earlier. He said that being on the show was the longest he spent in one place in 2 years.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting. So that tells you about what he kind of wants out of a life. Does he want to be in a place where he's settled down, or does he want to keep moving?
Yes.
That brings us to the final farewell dance. And I think she chose, let's see, it was Mr. Mumbray, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Chapman, I think, and Mr. Holland were the four that were chosen.
Holland, forget it. I'm sorry. I'm like,
so
before we get to Holland, let's get to Mr. Mumbray. Mr. Mumbray was the very first dance.
Oh, Mr. Mumbray.
and basically I think Liz is a huge Mr. Mumbray fan.
I'm a big anybody who can make a lemon drizzle cake.
Yes. I will confess. That was my favorite part.
And he did it in primitive circumstances. It looked like he had to like heat it with the sun because there were no ovens in Regency times. Like, I mean, I like that. Yeah. And there's a sweetness about him.
About his family. Like he loves his, like I said, my hero, and he loves his family. And I love that. I think that's sexy.
Everyone was crying because Miss Remy let him go. She sent him to the carriage to leave.
Danny was crying. What I loved about that is when he left, Dom gave him a huge hug. Did you see that? Dom gave him a huge hug. I'm like, I wish I could have seen their relationship. Clearly they had a nice, buddy relationship.
You can see that he's a friend, right? And like that's what she said, like about the friend zone and stuff, and that it's just not a romantic connection, but just a real. I actually had written down like he's the, I put in caps, the beta hero. He just wants to find love. He wants to feel love. And I'm like, I will write you a book. Like that was me.
Yes, please do. Please do. And then get him to be on the cover because
he is
a sweetheart. Good. So that was very emotional. Then Mr. Holland. Man, that broke my heart. That was one of the best goodbyes. He was very nice about it. Like, it's okay. It's okay. I don't want you to feel forced.
Yes. That for me, he wasn't trying to, he was like, he was letting her feel how she felt. Yeah. Like it was about her. Like, I understand. Like, for me, it was like,
and he's like, you've always been honest. I've appreciated your transparency.
So sad
they clapped. Everyone stood up and clapped.
Everyone's clapped. They cut to Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hunter was crying. Yes. Did you see that? There was a tear going down his face.
Chapman was teary too.
Everybody came down to give him hugs, and I was like, oh, Mr. Holland.
That was really hard. I'm like, if he was, to be honest, he was my one. So I was like,
sorry, Christy. I'm sorry. Miss Remy walked him out and also gave him a parting gift, which was the red cloak he wore on their date.
I love that. That was cute. That was so cute.
That was great.
I love that.
No, that was
he deserved it.
He did. He did deserve it. He did deserve it. So that was emotional. And then she danced with Chapman. Wait, did
I
she
don't even think she danced.
No,
she just came back and she was still in tears and saying, I want to keep Mr. Chapman and Mr. Hunter. And
that's right. And then there was at the end, while the credits are rolling, Chapman, I wrote it down.
What he said?
I don't know.
He came over to her and he was basically, I wrote it down myself because like Mr. Chapman, even though he's a wanderer, he says some really romantic things. He came over to her and he basically said, I'm falling for you. Then he goes on to say, if I knew the rules I could break, I would break every freaking rule for you. Yes! And I was like, oh my God, this man.
No.
This man is stealing my heart on a day-to-day basis.
Dom Remy, Nicole's brother, had accused Bochicchio of just saying enough to keep Nicole interested. But yet I feel like that might be what Chapman's doing.
Oh, wow, I like that. There's a difference. Yes, I see what you're saying. I think Mr. Chapman really likes Miss Remy, but he doesn't want to give up his lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I think he's saying his actual feelings, but he doesn't want to give up his lifestyle. But Mr. Bochicchio he would only give her little tidbits of information without actually openly saying, like, I'm falling for you. So but I get your perspective. Then yes, in a way, it seems like he's kind of leading her on. In a way, he is. If he doesn't want that lifestyle, then you should stop saying these beautiful things to her.
I was just going to ask, do you think that is Chapman aware? Like, is he someone who thinks he wants to settle down, or is he someone who's here just for, like, for me, I'm like, okay, there's certain men on this that I know are here and they want a relationship, right? And then there's others who I call them the decoys, who are there for to kind of pull her away from who's probably the ones that are looking for that relationship. And is he really there to find a relationship, maybe is he someone who in his mind thinks like, I'm ready, but he's just not? Or is he like, this is an experience, like, driving cross country, and it's just another experience for him, and I don't know the answer to that. That's a really good question, Christy. I feel like he went into the experiment feeling like, I'm not really into love. I'm just going to check this out. And I think that just this environment that's so immersive and it's like forced proximity. Now he's starting to question, maybe I do feel something. So I think it started out as one and ended up the other. Forced proximity does a lot for making you feel feelings that may or may not be true.
That's true.
Of course, in romance novels, it always ends up being true. But yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of both, really. Yeah.
I agree with you, Liz. I think it's kind of that thing. He went in there thinking, oh, this will be fun. And then maybe he fell for Miss Remy. Yeah. But even he said, I don't want a situation where I'm caught up in this whirlwind, and then 6 months from now, when this is done, I miss my old life. So even he's kind of self-aware enough to realize that I want to be careful, because I'm just in this experience. But then when it's gone, he might be like, all right, well, this experience isn't better than what I currently have. So
if you could pick one of the suitors to use as inspiration for a romance protagonist hero, who would you choose? And it could be anybody. It could even anybody who's been on the show. So can I do a merger or no? You can merge and meld. My hero that's coming up in my Berkeley book, the Desperately Seeking a Duchess, he's kind of a merger of like Chapman and Mumbray, where he's loves his family and wants a relationship, but he's had a past. So it would be like if Chapman was ready to kind of settle down, right? So like for me, like I would say that like the perfect character, but if I had to choose one, it would probably be Mumbray, and with a Cohen's moment. Mumbray with a Cohen's moment. I like would that. So read the hell out of that book. I will write it. Write it for you. Does anyone have any predictions? Tiffany, let's start with you.
I don't know what to think anymore, because I think for next week they showed Mr. Chapman potentially leaving. I honestly don't know. I think she's going to get rid of Mr. Hunter, Mr. Nazir. I forgot who's left. Probably Mr. Combs to get more of a Friends vibe there. And maybe Mr. Chapman will start to leave and he'll come back. I don't know anymore. I think Mr. Bochicchio for the win, though. That's my
for the big win. The big win.
For the big win.
For the big win. Christy, what do you think? I think that she is going to continue to fall for Chapman. I'm trying to figure out if he's really like, because I saw like the teaser. I think she'll continue to fall for him. And I don't think he's going to really leave. Do you think he's going to leave? That's a good question. Maybe he will. Honestly, I'll give him a lot of credit if he leaves on his own. Mm. Yeah. Oh, well, listen, if he doesn't leave, she's going to get rid of him. You didn't mention, I think that it's going to come down to who do you think? Judge and Bochicchio.
I could see that.
I think she's going to listen. If if she picks anyone at all, because I'm still not convinced she's going to pick anybody
I
at
think
all.
you're right. I don't think she's going to pick anybody. If it's not Chapman, I don't think she's going to pick anybody.
I think if it's not Bokikio, she's not going to pick anybody.
Who was?
I think that's true.
I think Bokikio, although wait, the father. Well, see, Bokikio kind of patched things up with Dom, it seemed like they were friendlier. But if he doesn't patch things up with the dad, maybe she might not be. I'm going to say she's not picking anybody.
The mom loves
Hunter,
not. Right? Mr. Hunter.
Yeah.
The mom,
yes, the mom.
She likes Nasir, but she mentioned Hunter first and she liked his confidence. So
yeah,
I'm curious how much mom's, input on if,
Yeah, I don't think she's going to end up with anybody.
Yeah, I don't. And like I said, I think.
But it'll be her choice, and that's
fine.
Her
choice. I hope she ends up with somebody.
I hope it's somebody because I feel like we're all invested as viewers in this outcome, and you got to give us somebody.
I agree. Yes.
Thank you so much, Christy, for joining us. You offered many interesting insights. The time has come for us to bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Your carriage awaits.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.